Welcome to Farm to Table, Northern Ontario. I'm your host, Chef Craig Young. Today we're going to be visiting Rocha Farms, and we'll be visiting truly northern farms. And we're going to be making head cheese. Check it out. It's so cool to be here at your place where you're making these wonderful farms that have been feeding you and your family and all of your customers. Rocha Farms, what a beautiful place.
Thanks very much. We're really excited to have you here, and we're really excited to support the Farm to Table Northern Ontario.
Really inspired to see what you're doing here, and just to think that almost any of the small sections of things that you've got so many different things going on, but to those that are really looking to try to do something for their own food, their own food security, to do just maybe the chickens, or maybe to consider keeping bees. A lot of these raised beds, you don't have to do all of this in one shot. Take on a little bit of a project and try to contribute to your own food security. This is a great way to do it. You've got it really done well here.
This is Rachelle Rocha. I'm a pharmacist actually, but I am a farmer in my spare time. So I can call myself a farmer, P-H-A-R-M-H-E-R. I got into farming because I wanted to eat good food, and so I started with a garden, and then I started with chickens, and then ducks, and then pigs and turkeys, and now we're quite the growing concern. It started to just feed me and my family, and it's turned into feeding some friends and some people who become our friends. And I think it's really important to contribute to a healthy food chain, and I think an animal needs to live outside in good conditions, and so that it can have a happy life and a good nutrient profile for the people they feed. So we started farming maybe 10 years ago with chickens in that little chicken tractor, mostly because I was a gardener and I wanted to improve fertility in the soil, and then they got eggs, so that was kind of nice. And so then I raised some babies. My neighbor has an incubator, so she hatches them out and we eat the roosters, and then we eat the old hens. So I used to sell some old hens to some Filipino people who I'm connected with for lots of good reasons. And they always wanted the old hens, and I couldn't figure out why. Why do you want the old hens? So I would link them up with other farms around that had old hens. And so then finally I ate old hen, like in their way, which is, boil it for a long time. And wow, does it ever have a lot more flavor and a lot more fat. And so I think that's another kind of food group that we need to reintroduce, is the old hen.
Sure.
Instead of the young, tender, 8-week-old Cornish cross, it's like we need to think about what happens to that layer hen after the end of her life cycle. That's delicious food, actually. So I've increased my duck stock. I'm at about 12 or 13 ducks.
Yeah.
I thought that would be tricky in the winter because ducks like wet water. Just tricky in the winter because it's minus 100. But no, it seems like I get a horse pail, an electric horse pail. We clean the horse pail once a day.
Right.
And they get fresh water. And the chickens and the ducks all live happily ever after. And as long as the chickens are going that way, they can go anywhere they want. The chickens and the ducks live together.
Okay. So they literally are wide open to go wherever they want.
Yeah. 100 years ago, this was actually farmed. It was fields and farmed and hay taken off and all of that. When we bought this property almost 30 years ago, the tag holders had just come in. So we thought, well, if we're going to try to reclaim it back into fields so we could actually see the pond, we could get a big equipment to do that, or we could use pigs. So we decided to use pigs. So we started with chickens and then ducks and then pigs and turkeys. So this year turkeys are coming. But this is about our 5th or 6th year for pigs, and it's just been amazing to see what they have done to this land. So the first place they lived we had 6 pigs, and they lived in this middle area. The pigs have only been released into this fenced-off electric fence area for maybe a week or so, and they've already done quite a bit of plowing. So we just keep rotating where they go so that the land has a chance to rebound. But it's quite amazing how much they eat and turn over. And so they turn up anything that I didn't harvest, and then they poop all over the place. And then we have like a fertilized, less weedy bed for next year. So I wanted to get pigs for a few reasons. Number one, they're delicious, and if you want to eat really good meat, you need to really make sure it's raised outside. And it's really hard to buy this kind of food, is stuff that's raised outside. And as you can see, if you're doing a lot of pigs year after year after year, it's really hard on the land. And this is why they end up in barns on concrete. It's not because people maybe think that that's the most ideal circumstance, but it's very practical to do that. I watched a lot of videos before I got pigs, and one of the lady farmers had rescued a red wattle pig, I think. And she was talking about the intelligence of the animal. They're highly intelligent. They're as smart as a dog. And they know when you're outside, and they're super friendly, and they want to see you. And she got into farming because she wanted to save those ones from confinement animal hunting. And that's one of the big reasons I wanted to do pigs. If I could save 6, the first year we did pigs, we did 6. And that was 6 that didn't have to live in confinement. And now I'm doing 18 a year, and that's 18 less that have to live in confinement. So I think what's really interesting is when they live outside, you get a higher concentration of micronutrients, including vitamin D, because they're living outside and they manufacture vitamin D, which gets stored in their fat. So when you eat fat from an animal that's grown outside, it's got vitamin D. It'll also have omega-3 fatty acids, because that comes from the grass, the green stuff. And these are things that are typically deprived of all animals in confinement. This is the new pig home. It's constructed, inspired by a permaculture guru named Stephane, who farms in Austria. And he talks about building earth shelters out of logs. And so basically we're under the ground in here, and we're facing south-southeast so that the sun can wake the pigs up in the morning. Pigs are a little bit like teenagers. They sleep a lot. But what it is a highly insulated structure. So it's very cool in the height of summer because we're blocked off from the south, the height of the sun. And in the wintertime, it retains a lot of warmth. So in November, end of October, when it starts to dip to -0 something, -5, -10, the pigs will be very happy in here. We're just going to put some straw. And pigs are quite clean. They don't go in their facilities. They go outside always. So it's not like you need to put a tractor in here to muck it out.
It's remarkably cool in there.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
It's like cool looking, and it's actually temperature-wise pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so they haven't seen this yet, so I'm curious what they're going to think of it when they discover it. Every year I sell, all the pigs get sold out. And every year there's some new people, and every year there's some repeat people. I have friends of mine who've been buying them since we started, so every year for the last 5 or 6 years. And, you know, when you get a freezer full, if you're not used to buying meat like that, you might not need one every year. I'm looking to sell to anybody who thinks that a good quality meat is worth investing in. And that's just about everybody who tries it. I've had people who buy pork from me that can't tolerate grocery store pork. They get really sick to their stomach when they eat it. Some of these are bred, they're Tamworth breeds, which are a higher fat breed. And to be honest, some people didn't really like that. There was too much fat. They didn't know what to do with it or how to figure it out. And I don't think that... So they're not really all that interested in Tamworth any longer. But I think that it's an amazingly beautiful product. And I think that the flavor of the meat is just amazing. So big deal you have so much fat that you can't use. We just need to learn how to replace our olive oil with it, I think, and render it and deal with it properly. We need to pull from the northern cultures, right? The Finland, the Germany, the whatever. And there's no olive trees in any of those cultures. They were eating pork fat.
Yeah.
And so I use olive oil for a few things, but really I use pork fat for almost everything.
What a beautiful day. The birds chirping. I'm so pleased that you had some time for us to come by and check out what you're doing here at Rocha Farms. I'm just so excited to be seeing what kind of things we're going to see out of the fall and the wonderful produce that you've got available over at Seasons.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting, and I'm really glad to have the opportunity. It started with one small thing, and it seems to have like blown out of proportion here, but we're pretty excited to be part of the Farm to Table Network, and best of luck on the rest of your tours.
Farm to Table, Northern Ontario. We're just arriving at Truly Northern Farms. Kale, sprouts, lots of microgreens, wonderful greenery. You want to make a salad to go with your barbecue stuff? This is where you come. Pull up, you can pick up your greens right over here. Let's check it out. We are in a hydroponic vertical farm. We're here with Erin, Chris, and Rowe, Truly Northern Farms.
Hi guys. So I'm Erin, and I'm one of the owners of Truly Northern Farms. We have 3 farms, 2 here in Chelmsford, and the big farm up in Oppisatica, Ontario, which is quite a bit further north. Stephane and I got into hydroponic farming when we were actually living in South Korea. We'd been there for about a decade, and we decided that we wanted to come back to Canada to do something different. And Steph stumbled upon the modular farm. And a year later, we moved back to Canada, bought this property, and got our first farm. So we kind of jumped in not really knowing what it was going to entail, how much work it was going to be, how much research we'd need to do on plant health and nutrients and water and all that kind of stuff. But thankfully Steph's a researcher, so he just dove right in. You got to learn. And another thing that we really learned, and I'm not going to say early in the game, was don't let the negative things that are happening affect you, because once you allow that negativity in, it permeates everything. And I remember feeling so overwhelmed and depressed, and did we make the right decision? And I was driving into Sudbury one day, and I physically felt it lift. Anytime one of us would go into the negative frame of mind, the other encourages us to, don't think that way, get out of that. And since we started kind of practicing that together and helping each other, it's just, things have gone way better. Now it's snowballing, but in a really good way. So, yeah. This is a vertical system. We have towers. The towers are built kind of out of a PVC plastic. So in the farm, there's 240 towers. And since we're growing kale specifically, we fit about 16 plants per tower. There could be upwards of 4,000 plants. If we're going to compare this to a traditional farm, we can grow as much food as about an acre. The square footage of this is 800 square feet. Harvesting is a little bit easier because you're not bending down all day. We don't use any chemicals in the farm at all. We don't do any spraying of pesticides. So everything is actually controlled on my phone, and I can manipulate the lights, I can manipulate the watering system, I can check what my CO2 content is in my room. I could also check what my EC or nutritional content on my water is just by looking at my phone.
So what's the substrate you're using here?
The substrate is a peat moss cube, and that's 100% compostable. My compost pile is ginormous. I give any of the little leaves or any of the burnt leaves to my chickens, so we try not to waste anything. If there's a pig farmer or a farmer that would love to have some stuff for free, we make an arrangement for you to come pick it up every Friday, and I'll save all of that stuff for you. So that's pretty much what it looks like with the lights on.
It looks like a dance party.
It does. Yeah, it is in here.
Yeah, it is. They're going hard.
Yeah.
So we're at the self-serve kiosk of sorts at Truly Northern Farms, the green shed, and they've got beef and pork and greens. So we've got romaine lettuce, pea shoots, kale, salad greens, fresh basil, and everything is set up on the honor system. Leave your money here. You can also e-transfer them. What a nice way to set things up. Show up, get what you need, be on your way. You don't lose much time, and there wasn't a lineup today. And you're interested in getting some of these greens, yep, you can get them at the self-serve here at the farm, but there are other places. Could you name a couple?
Sure.
Where your products are featured?
So our greens are featured at Rehan's Independent at the Four Corners. We're also supplying Chris's Independent on Lorne. We're also in Chartrand's Independent in Chelmsford and Neil's Independent in Hanmer. Now for the people who are much further north, we've just gotten into Hearst. So we're at Fresh Off the Block in Hearst, which is a grocery store, as well as the Independent there. And we're also selling at the Independent in Kapuskasing. We've recently launched a home delivery service called orderfresh.ca. We've partnered up with a couple other local farmers, Birch Lake Abattoir in Massey for beef and pork, fresh mushrooms from the Ugly Barn Farm. We're also offering olive oils and vinegars from Adoro, roasted coffee beans from Old Rock Coffee, magic baguette, the baguette La Baguette Magique. We're doing sweet sets with them. We've also started with Old Soul Soap Company, and all of these are available on orderfresh.ca for home delivery.
We got some beautiful microgreen salad, some pea shoots, and matching up with our green Farm to Table Northern Ontario merch. What a great experience on a beautiful day today. Getting to check out Truly Northern Farms with Erin, Christy, Rowe here. Stellar greens. They're available here locally. You got to check them out.
Thanks so much, guys, for coming out. I really appreciate you taking the time to support local farmers and growers and producers, and for visiting the farm and chewing the fat with us here.
Good morning. We're going to be working with some less popular items, but there's no reason for them to be less popular. If you eat meat, I would consider that it's important to eat stuff like this if you're ethically involved in the consumption of the meat. Trotters, tails, and a pig's head. We're going to be making head cheese, doing a little bit of nose to tail butchery. So I'm just going to start out by getting some cold water into this large pot, and we're going to get the trotters in there. You want to start out with cold water. I'm going to put probably about 2 tablespoons worth of sea salt. Should be enough. It's just supposed to aid in the extraction of all the gelatins. I'm going to be simmering this for a bit, not much to see. I'm going to add some bay leaf, a little bit of onion, some celery, dry thyme, and cloves. And now we're going to be processing the tails. So it's the actual tail, which is really rich in gelatin, but as you can see, you've got a lot of the, this is the bone structure at the base of the spine, and then you got the tail. Main idea here is we're going to be getting all of the good gelatin and all this good stock related stuff out of this by putting it in the pot with the trotters, but this we're going to set aside for other preparations. You don't have to waste anything. I mean, really, these are probably some of the things that you think are the most nasty, and they make some of the most wonderful flavors. The pig's head is thawed out. We're making use of this because we're trying to respect the fact that this animal was alive and was grown for us to be able to consume. This could be a little bit disturbing to some people, but to me, you should have the gumption for this if you eat pork chops or barbecue. There's the back. We got the tongue here. Typically right here, you can see the eye and the ear. Right here is this area right here. And typically that gets left on. Not everyone butchers the same, but it is typical to have this additional fat over top of the cheek be still attached. You can see there's a really good musculature, good nugget of meat there. I've taken the time to just free up the tendons just on the inside here and be able to remove the tongue. Remember that this has been scalded, so it's going to have a little bit of, it's losing some fibers. That comes off when you cook it anyways. And then this is going to allow for us to make a nice terrine. I'm going to cure this with pink salt, and we'll get back to brining the head. The tails and the trotters are simmering now in the pot. And we've got the head. This is about 2 liters of hot water. I've got a large pot here. Ooh, it's a big guy. We're going to add half a cup worth of sea salt, maybe a bit more. So this is just like a ham curing salt. I'm going to put 10 grams. And I start out with hot water just to speed up the process of dissolving it. The next stage is going to be getting the head in there. Let's go ahead and do that. Fill it up right over top of the head and even a little bit past. Get it nice and full of cold water. And this is about 2 to 3 days of being in the salt solution. The pig's head, it's been in brine for 2 days. Got to keep it iced down. I keep some old pop bottles, sanitize them, take the wrappers off them, fill them up with tap water, and then freeze them. And I use them as an ice pack. We're We're going to dump off the brine. Don't cook it in the brine. You're going to notice it looks quite a bit whiter now. And we're going to get that into the pot. It's about 10 cloves. I put about a tablespoon of dried thyme, about 5 or 6 bay leaves. Peppercorns, probably about 30. I'm going to top this up with cold water and then let it come up to temperature. And this is going to simmer 5-6 hours. It's a long process, but you don't have to do much. The working time just now this morning after taking it out of the brine has been about 2 minutes. Don't add salt, okay? You're not going to need to add salt to this. It's already inside the meat, and we can season afterwards if we need to. That's the tongue. So we're going to take that out of the curing salt. So that's going to go in with the pig's head. So that's going to come out. It's going to have a very noticeable pinkish hue to it, and when we dice that after trimming it, it's going to actually look like little pieces of really tender ham in and throughout the head cheese. Delectable. It's been cooking for 6 hours. Just set your drink down if you're squeamish. What I'm looking for is all the little musculatures, all the meat, some of the fat that renders out, and here's what you're left with. This is much more palatable. So you see some pale colored stuff here. This is cut up some of the cheek fat. If it's soft and rendered out, and actually take a piece, it should be salted and you should be able to eat it. If it's palatable, it should make really good bits for the head cheese. You want to have 3/4 meat. You want to have about 1/4 fat. Basically what you're making is something that's going to become a cold sausage. You can see some of the bits end up looking much like corned beef or ham. Mixed up inside this mixture is also all of the bits of tongue. There's a good little nugget of tongue. It tastes just like good corned beef. I've got a small tureen. This is all going to get placed into the tureen. Once it's in the tureen, this is from the tails and trotters. Very reduced. I'm going to melt a liter of that, so maybe about to here, and I'm going to allow that to fill in the gaps over top of the tureen. Got the stock here. That's gelatinized. Just need it to melt. You know, get it to where it's warm and more likely to sink into all the gaps. That's what's going to hold it together. So that is all of the packed and trimmed meat. There's, I think, 4 glands on the inside of the head. They kind of end up looking much like a little marble. You don't want those. They're okay to leave in the pot and cook them out. Once you find that little sphere, you want that gone. And where you find one on one side, there'll be one on the other end. Sometimes they fall out in the processing. Sometimes they fall into the stock pot and they stay there. So if you find little nuggets where it's like a sphere, you don't want that. Everything else in here, I've sort of gone through and taste tested, and I did shake in 1.5 teaspoons of salt. Got some whiskey. The rye is going to actually give a nice little elevation, much like putting a little bit of brandy into liver pate. This is a coriander, allspice, black pepper, white pepper, and salt mixture with a little wee bit of nutmeg in it. I'm going to shake that into the liquid. I'm going to put the raw liquor straight into the tureen. It just adjusts, it gives it a little bit of a sharpness. I've got a garlic and thyme vinegar. I've got the stock. Oh, that looks good. I'm going to take this and just sort of tap it down on your counter, because there's a lot of air pockets, and the more you get rid of those pockets, the more it's going to nicely set and just be solid. Use the things you don't think about too often. This is part of the pig. You know, it's not just pork chops and bacon. There's a lot of really good food there. Thanks for watching, and most importantly, thanks for supporting your local farmers. Check out our Instagram and our Facebook, and of course our YouTube channel for full recipes and additional content. And be sure to check out your Farm to Table Northern Ontario merch. Get some today. We got t-shirts, hoodies, hats, whatever you need. We've got it. Take care. Thanks for tuning in.